But I am going to share my screen and share a presentation. And again, I'm here to answer any questions. You may want to go off audio just because it may be hard for me to see the chat while I am sharing, but just want to make sure that I'm answering the questions that you have. So feel free to chime in or wait till the end, whatever suits you. But yeah, thank you for joining and again, making time in your day. But let me just share a little bit of the agenda that I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on menopause and what it's all about. Some of you may be experiencing it, some may not yet as experiencing symptoms. I'll talk a little bit about Menowar, the company that I founded, and some of the services that we offer. And I'm going to go through some menopause mythbusters. So kind of things maybe you thought were true that maybe they're not, or maybe you're correct. And I'll obviously integrate some information in there, and then we'll do some Q&A. And first, I'm going to do a poll. And so let me go back to my Zoom here. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. Let me stop share. And let me launch the poll here just to get a little bit of information from you guys. So you should see a question up on your screen. Are you currently in a phase of menopause? Sorry for the typo. And just want to get, again, this is anonymous, but just want to get a sense if you're in menopause, perimenopause, which is before the actual start of menopause, whether you're post that start of menopause, no, you're not in a phase of menopause, or if you're not sure. So if you guys, hopefully you guys can click on the poll.
Oh, shoot.
Is that coming up to your screen?
So I'm not seeing it. Is anybody else seeing it?
Does it work on a phone?
Oh, there we go. I saw one come in. It should work on a phone.
I see it, yeah.
So anybody else able to answer? There we got postmenopause. Cool, not sure. And that's totally fair because sometimes it's super confusing, and I'll go through the different stages and ask you to, ask any questions then. And then, yeah, another question is, I'll have some of these other questions pop up later, but how knowledgeable would you say about menopause? And it looks like, across the gamut, some are very knowledgeable, some moderately, some not knowledgeable. So again, hopefully we'll leave this with a little bit better education, but let me end this and I'll share my screen again and go back to the presentation. Okay. All right. So just a little bit of background. And let me go to my full slide screen. That will help. I think you see it better. Okay, so why are we talking about menopause? Why is this subject coming up? And I just kind of like to approach it from the standpoint of we women, like we often are managing ourselves, our families, our careers, and we're taking care of others for a lot of our lives. But, menopause hits and all of a sudden, like it becomes a roller coaster. And so instead of really helping other people with a lot of our energy, all of a sudden we're like, oh my gosh, we need help. Like somebody help us. And I think it's reasonable for you to set boundaries and tell other people what you're going through, what you need. And really what I'm hoping to help educate women on is like really knowing your body, knowing your biology, understanding the complexity of all these systems that are at work. Really make sure that you're heard and you feel understood, because I think that's one of the things I hear from women a lot during this life stage is, gosh, nobody really gets it. So if you're amongst others that understand what you're going through and you can say, hey, I'm normal, this is what people go through at this time, but here's some ways to manage it. Obviously, we want to support you and guide you and make sure that your journey can be as informed as possible. And really have a really positive mindset about, your life doesn't end after menopause. It can just start and you can have a really new beginning. And so really see the light at the end of the tunnel and the beauty of this point in our lives when we become very wise and very grounded and have so many great capabilities that we can employ. And again, just like recognize that you're a badass, like take ownership for who you are and what you can do and really just be all that you can. And again, I think menopause certainly has a lot of challenges, but again, I think it's an opportunity for you to kind of create the best version of yourself. So hopefully you leave feeling a little motivated that it's not all bad news. Next, I want to just share, like, oh my gosh, like what a great time to be talking about menopause, because the conversation is really happening. And one of my objectives is to really destigmatize the conversation a bit and really have it be more out in the open and kind of make that uncomfortable topic a little bit more comfortable. And I just have a host of pictures here about different celebrities that have come out and really shared more about their menopause journey. Drew Barrymore, Halle Berry, Michelle Obama, Naomi Watts started a company called Stripes, Gwyneth Paltrow, and then the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal have all come out with many articles on this topic. So I think the time is right for us to really learn more about menopause, be able to manage our journey. And again, I think the purpose for celebrities coming out is just, again, destigmatizing the topic and making people feel more comfortable about having that conversation with their loved ones, their friends, their family members, etc. So again, like some really good statistics here about talking about menopause, and like the M word is kind of going public. Matter of fact, there's a quote from Oprah Winfrey that I wanted to read from her big menopause show. She said, "You cannot outrun, you cannot out earn, you cannot out exercise, you cannot out yoga, you cannot out facts, the big M, you cannot. The menopause, no matter what." So it's coming, and the better we're prepared to manage it, the better off we're going to be. So here's just some stats about, why we should do more about this conversation and just managing our menopause. 51% of the population will go through menopause, and that's equivalent to 75 million women in some stage, perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause. And again, I'll talk about those different stages. Up to 40% of a woman's life can be spent in menopause. Surprising. I think some people think, oh, it'll be around for a year and then it'll be over. Well, no, it can actually last quite a bit of time. And again, going through these different stages. So we'll talk about management of that. 95% of women have some symptoms of menopause. Some lucky few slide by and they don't have, any symptoms. They kind of don't even know that menopause is happening. But a lot, have many or some symptoms. They change over time. So definitely there's a journey and things can morph. 64% indicate that their symptoms affect their quality of life. So this is not just, physical manifestations. This can be mental and emotional manifestations that we'll talk about. And, we all want to have the best quality of life possible. So again, important to manage it. 73% are experiencing but not currently treating their menopause symptoms. What this tells me is that a lot of women don't think that help is there. They don't know who to go to. They are scared of some of the treatments. So we're here to help allay some of those fears and tell you more information. There's also a consequence in the workplace. 30% of the workforce is composed of women in menopause. And they say there's an estimated $1.8 billion in lost productivity due to menopause. So more companies hopefully will employ menopause benefits. And, just like any other stage of a woman's biological life cycle, will have benefits to support this phase as well. And then 43% of women, again, who experience one disruptive symptom of menopause, this is kind of shocking, at age 55, are 43% more likely, let me just move this down, to have left their jobs by age 55. So one little story, the UK is way far ahead of us in terms of menopause education and benefits. And they saw like their skilled workforce of professionals really deteriorating. And they said, well, why is this? And how do we help rectify this? They found a lot of those were women in menopause. And so they wanted to bring those women back into the workforce and actively went to help give benefits to allow that to happen. So something we can hopefully look forward to here in the US as well. Okay. So let me just go through the basics and then we'll do a deeper dive as we go through some of the myth busters. So every human who has ovaries will experience menopause. Obviously, over half the population, 51% of us in this country are female. And so 55 women today are experiencing menopause as we speak. What is it? As I mentioned, like menopause, that word can be used in multiple different ways, but the definition is 12 months after you've not had your cycle. That date, if you're able to track it, is like your official menopause. Before that is perimenopause. After that is postmenopause. And again, after menopause, you're postmenopausal for the rest of your life. Again, whether or not you have symptoms, that's kind of how you're defined. And again, the physical, the cognitive, the emotional symptoms can vary. And I'll go through all of the host of different symptoms women face. Why does this happen? Well, hormonal changes are responsible for a lot of our physical and emotional and mental, differences and things that happen over time. And so this happens because we have declining estrogen, declining progesterone, and testosterone. Yes, women have testosterone, much lower than men, but we do have testosterone. It's an important part of our reproductive hormone process. And then we have these two hormones, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, and LH, luminating hormone, which also which rise during menopause. Then, as I kind of mentioned before, symptoms can happen way earlier than we thought they would, and they can happen way before the start of official menopause. On average, they last 7 years, but as I said, they can go for 14 years or more. There are women in their 70s who still have hot flashes. So we all hope we're not one of them. But again, there are ways in which we can mitigate those consequences if that is the case. And then again, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Why am I a menopause coach? Because I think a lot of women kind of suffer in silence. They, really don't understand, how they can be helped and how to navigate that journey. And so I'm really here to help give you information to help you do that more effectively and really be an advocate for yourself. And one thing I want to point out, and I'll talk about this several times, the symptoms are not only critical to mitigate just for comfort, but also there are long-term health consequences of things like hot flashes that you want to mitigate as early as possible. So the sooner you can get treatment, the less the impact will be short-term and long-term. But really, I'm here to say you're not alone. I'm here to help, and there's lots of resources available to help you through this journey. One little fun fact, we are the only land mammal that actually has menopause. The only other species that has been shown to have menopause are a few species of whales, so some marine animals, and there's a few chimps in captivity that have had them, but that's simply because they have a longer lifespan. So we're just unusual in that we've been able to prolong our lifespan, but our reproductive years are still way shorter than our total average life cycle of 81 years. So that gives you a little bit more information. And then, and then just a little bit more information about hormones and how hormones fluctuate over time. Obviously, the first major hormonal event most women or most girls evidence is puberty, which typically happens, between 10 and 15, depending upon the individual. And then we go through a host of years from about 18 to about 45, which are our key menstrual years and our fertility years. And so again, our hormones are fluctuating, and all those hormones that are part of the reproductive process are really focused, obviously, on allowing you to have children if you so desire. But again, there's a winding down of that. And so menopause typically happens between 45 and 55, average age of 51. And then, like I said, after you officially hit menopause, postmenopause is all the years after. Okay, let me just give you a quick overview of Menowar, just so you understand what services I offer and how I can help. And we'll spend the majority of this time on just the education part. Just a little bit about me, just to make me a little bit more personal, so you know who I am and what I do. So as I said, I live in Walnut Creek. I lived in Moraga for a time before Walnut Creek. I have 3 lovely children. They're all in their 20s, and it's nice to have fully grown adults who are self-sufficient. But I have lived in the Bay Area for about 25 years. I grew up in New York, and one of my passions is exercise. So we'll talk a little bit about exercise and menopause, but something I know quite a bit about and can help you in terms of what is right for you at this stage. Just a bit about my professional background. I got my MBA and my bachelor's from Duke University, so I spent some time in the Southeast. I spent most of my career as an executive, leading teams, mostly in marketing, and, loved it, had a lot of passion around marketing. But, I kind of had this journey, both professionally and personally, where loved what I was doing, really passionate. And then I kind of got burnt out. And I really took a look inside myself to say, okay, how can I better serve others and do something that has greater purpose? And going through my own menopause challenges, which I'll definitely, share more of, it totally took me it blindsided me and it took me for a loop. And I had just really dug deep inside myself and said, what do I want to do? And I decided to really devote myself to learning more about menopause and helping others through this journey. I got trained and licensed through this organization called Menopause Experts Group. And so now I'm certified and here to help. In terms of what Menowar does, what services we provide, again, my whole reason for being is because menopause is often misdiagnosed, undercommunicated, underserved. And so I want to normalize the conversation, really remove the stigma and empower all of you to really manage your menopause. One thing I'll say, regardless of whether you're seeing a doctor or some other caregiver, they will look at a slice of the pie, and sometimes they have limited time, limited resources, or your insurance is limited capacity. And so they're not often able to spend as much time with you and help you across the entire spectrum of this journey. So I want to make sure that we can manage those together and help you thrive in your second half of life. So really equip you with an understanding of what menopause is, your biology, educate you on the options, both short-term and long-term. And we'll talk a little bit about hormone replacement therapy, which can be called menopause therapy, HRT, all means the same thing. And then other options you have available if you can't or prefer not to go down that route. I want to make sure you have the right providers, and it's important to choose the right doctor. There's an organization called the North American Menopause Society. They have a directory of doctors that are associated with them, and doctors that are part of that society and credentialed. They have to take certification exams and get recertified every 3 years. So those are by far and away the best providers in terms of MDs, but there are a lot of other providers who are capable as well. And again, you want to ask the right questions and make sure you're advocating for yourself, whomever is servicing, your healthcare needs. And then I want to create this great community of women who can talk amongst themselves and share their journeys and vent, and just, it can be frustrating sometimes. And again, just want to feel like you're not alone. Just one quick note. So I was talking at the beginning of this session. I do have another event on September 11th. It's a Menopause Cafe. Instead of being an informational session, that's simply a conversation that I am facilitating. I am the San Francisco Bay Area representative of this great nonprofit that was recently in People magazine. Rachel Weiss is the founder, and she simply created this organization. It was started in little coffee houses in Scotland and now is in over half a dozen countries, over 400 of these facilitators who are just trying to create these open conversations, either in person or online, to provide support in a confidential environment. And again, open to anybody who wants to attend, whether it's the person in menopause, a friend, a partner, whomever. And it's all based upon your interests and what topics you want to talk about, and just very respectful and impartial to your own menopause journey and how you want to pursue that. So if you want to join us, I'll have the QR code at the end that you can scan, or you can go on my site, menowar.net. All right. Now it's time for the official game of Menopause Mythbusters. I don't know how many of you watch this yourself, or I know my kids were big fans when they were little, but want to go through some myths and kind of correct some facts and, again, answer any questions. Let me just quickly pause. Anybody have any questions so far? All right, I'll keep on powering through, but please stop me if anything is confusing. All right, myth number 1. Menopause only happens to women over 50. So again, average age 51, we talked about that, and most often occurs between the ages of 45 and 55. But as I mentioned, menopause can start way earlier than we thought, and sometimes we'll be in our peak fertility years, and we won't expect menopause to happen, and it will creep up on us. So it's good to be, that's what I also want to do, is make sure young women are aware that, hey, this can happen even when you think you're in your key childbearing years. So sometimes women will attribute some of the symptoms in their late 30s or early 40s to other things. And it's good to, again, always visit a doctor if you think there could be a slight chance that you're menopause, just so they can treat you accordingly. And make sure that there's nothing else going on in your reproductive systems. Just so you know, 1 in 10 women experience menopause before age 45. So it can happen before age 45. And it's not totally uncommon. Only 1 in 100 experience it before age 40. But there's many different factors that can lead to early menopause. So I'm going to talk a little bit about these different stages or different ways in which one can enter menopause. So again, natural menopause is the typical course for most women between ages of 45 and 55. Premature menopause happens prior to age 40. And this occurs when a woman's ovaries stop maturing due to lower levels of estrogen. This can be due to chromosomal or abnormalities. There's some cancer treatments that can cause that to happen, autoimmune diseases, and some infectious diseases, but it's pretty atypical. Early menopause is defined as happening between ages 40 and 45. That affects about 5% of women, and this can be caused by some genetic factors, autoimmune diseases, some thyroid diseases. There are some viral illnesses. Smoking can be a key factor here. We'll talk more about that. But these women who are in this early menopause phase, they don't ovulate or menstruate, and they can no longer get pregnant. Then we have primary ovarian insufficiency. You might have heard of POI is the acronym. That only occurs in about less than 1% of women. In most cases, we don't really know the cause of why this happens. Again, it can be due to genetic abnormalities. It could be exposures to toxins or autoimmune disorders. In this case, women can have irregular periods for years. They can actually ovulate and might even get pregnant. So it's kind of this weird stage where you can be fluctuating back and forth. Surgical menopause is when parts of your reproductive system are surgically removed. This can be an oropectomy, which is when your ovaries are just removed, or a hysterectomy. There's many different kinds of hysterectomies, but primarily it's the removal of the uterus, but other organs can be involved as well. So that often hysterectomy can be recommended if you have fibroids, if you have some conditions of the reproductive system, genetic risk, some kinds of irregular bleeding, or other factors. But in this case, a woman's periods do stop with surgical menopause. And then lastly, medical menopause is when cancer therapies like radiation or chemotherapy are employed and directed at the ovaries. And this causes the ovaries to stop functioning, which makes menopause happen before it would normally occur. And again, may cause the periods to stop. Some women go in directly into menopause, some don't. Some actually continue to have periods, some can actually still have children. It really depends on the woman. So menopause myth number 2, that menopause symptoms only last a few months. Like I said, it can last for years. And again, can happen very early on, can be scattered, can change over time. Again, rare for it to happen in the late 30s, but I think women just aren't as aware to kind of be on the lookout for these and recognize that they could be in menopause or perimenopause and kind of do a visit to the doctor and do a check-in. And again, we women tend to take things in and kind of blame ourselves sometimes. I don't know why this is, but we kind of say, hey, it's my fault, or hey, maybe I have this crazy disease, or maybe I'm going insane. So I think it's important to know it's not your fault. And it's important to get it diagnosed and to see your doctor and track your symptoms. So I guess the key message I would take away is really try to keep stock of your symptoms. Don't attribute it to something that it may not be. I know you all try to self-diagnose. But see a doctor or a care provider so you can understand what's going on with your body and really try to mitigate these symptoms as early as possible so you can be comfortable and take care of your long-term health. Myth number 3, menopause is just hot flashes, and these are just simply uncomfortable. Yes, they can be uncomfortable, but I will go through very shortly a whole list of 40 plus symptoms that are typical or can be typical during menopause. So one thing I really want to alert people to is, again, women will just say, oh, I'll just grin and bear it. My hot flashes aren't that bad. But hot flashes can, again, have long-term impacts. They can disrupt sleep. They can cause mood disturbances. You can have difficulty concentrating or memory issues, very common during menopause. I call it, menopause brain or meno brain. And then in one study, frequent hot flashes and night sweats were associated with 50% increased risk of cardiovascular disease. Similarly, if they persist over time, then there's even higher risk of later cardiovascular disease. I think women sometimes just tend to focus so much on breast cancer. And I'll talk a little bit about myths surrounding hormone replacement therapy and breast cancer. But honestly, 90% of women who, within the first 5 years are free and clear. And so I guess my message here is that breast cancer is one of the most easily diagnosed and treated cancers in many cases, whereas some of these other long-term diseases are things you need to really look out for. And cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer of women in this country and men. So it's just a matter of not, you want to discount any risks of breast cancer. And there's some conditions in which you don't want to pursue hormone replacement therapy, but there are other health consequences of having these menopause symptoms long-term. Again, hot flashes can also be connected to osteoporosis, diabetes, cancers. So not to scare anybody, but just let's be on it and try to mitigate the symptoms. And again, my message is like, you don't have to be a martyr. There's no medal for toughing it out. Do whatever you can. I'm just encouraging you to get some relief and tend to your long-term health. Okay, this is my long list of menopause symptoms, and I'm sure a lot of these will look super familiar. I'll just talk about the key ones or classifications that a lot of women suffer. Of course, we talked about periods, starting to get spotty, having abnormal bleeding. All of these different cycle changes are incredibly prevalent. Obviously, every woman will go through them at some point and have her cycles completely stop, but that is obviously one of the telltales of menopause. Another thing is we classify these as vasomotor symptoms. These are the hot flashes, the night sweats when you're waking up and your t-shirt's soaked and your sheets are wet and you just can't fall back asleep. Some women actually get the reverse. They get chills. They actually get cold sensations. So temperature regulation, which is connected to the hypothalamus gland is very much affected during menopause. Then there's something called the I can't even say this word, genitourinary symptoms of menopause, or just GSM. Those are a lot of things focused on our vaginal and urinary area. So vaginal dryness, irritation, pain during intercourse, UTIs, having to pee all the time. All of those are classified as GSMs, and those are very, very common. Similarly, lower libido, less sex drive. I mean, I kind of say, well, all the stuff going on, who's in the mood? But I think also because some people have pain or just comfort or just are very mindful of all this stuff going on in their bodies, that sex drive, also because of hormonal changes, will often decrease. A lot of women feel like fatigue and just tiredness. They just can't do what they used to do and just are really exhausted at the end of the day. Sleep problems, that can be having trouble falling asleep. That could be waking up in the middle of the night. I had 2 weeks where I literally was waking up 3 a.m., 4 a.m., right away, couldn't fall back asleep. And of course, that creates a host of issues when you don't get the right sleep. Psychological symptoms. So, hey, if you had anxiety before, it may come back, it may morph, you may have anxiety you never had, but heightened anxiety is super, super common. Panic attacks can happen, depression, general mood disturbances, all pretty normal. Joint pain, just feeling aches and pains, whether it be after a workout or just after simple things that didn't used to cause issues before. All of a sudden you'll feel joint pain. One of the most dreaded ones is the weight gain, and often it happens around the midsection. So you get some fat accumulation in that midsection, and people's body shape changes often during menopause. But again, there are ways in which to mitigate that. But I know that's one of the more disturbing ones for those of us like, oh, I'm eating the same, I'm exercising the same way I did. Well, maybe you actually need to change things up during menopause, which is, eye-opening. And then thinning hair and nails, also happens a lot during menopause. But again, lots of symptoms. Okay, now we can tackle a little bit more on HRT. So a lot of people think HRT is not safe. And there are some conditions in which HRT is not recommended. So if you have a personal history of breast cancer or uterine cancer, reproductive cancers, your doctor may indicate that it's not a safe course for you, or a history of blood clots. But one thing I will say is that, hey, if you have a family history of breast cancer, which a lot of us do, whether it be a direct relationship like our mother or grandmother or somebody a little bit more further removed, that doesn't mean you're not a candidate for HRT. It's a conversation to have with your doctor, and they can determine that. But I will say that, again, the North American Menopause Society their gold standard is hormone replacement therapy. It is the most effective treatment that they can possibly recommend. And there have been a ton of clinical studies validating its safety for the majority of women. Also, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, the Endocrine Society, and 10 other medical associations all rally behind HRT as the gold standard. So it's definitely something that a lot of women like to consider. And one thing that most people don't understand, a lot of us are on birth control pills for many, many years. And the current doses of HRT are often about a third the level of birth control pills. So birth control pills also have hormones, and HRT actually has a lower dosage than many birth control. Again, there's a whole separate conversation we could have about this WHI study, which was, I think, igniting the flames of HRT not being safe. It was started in 1993. They came out with early results in 2003 and halted the study because they indicated there was increased risk of breast cancer. There's, again, a lot of issues. The average age of that population was 62. They'd never had hormone replacement therapy, so didn't have those early benefits that kind of carry over into our later years. Just the way in which the data was collected. So I think we're all trying to reverse some of the fallacies that were shared as part of that study and the PR surrounding it when that came out. But really, like I said, HRT can improve long-term health. It helps your brain, it helps your heart, it helps your bones long-term. So definitely something to consider, not only for short-term symptoms, but also long-term health. And therefore, like, the conclusion is, again, HRT is safe for most women, something to discuss with your doctor. A lot of women ask, well, how long can I be on an HRT for? And should I get off of it quickly? And actually, the indication these days is no, you can actually continue it for a very long time. Just make sure you're under, obviously, a doctor's guidance. And again, there's a lot of other options available, that I'll talk about if you choose to or cannot, pursue HRT. Okay, menopause myth number 5. HRT is a silver bullet. Well, again, I listed all of these great benefits and trying to convince people to at least consider it and have that discussion with their doctor. But again, it may not be for people. They say if you're over age 60, or it's been 10 years since your menopause date or when you stopped menstruating, it's not generally recommended. Again, conversation with your doctor. As I mentioned, if you have a higher risk and have had some cardiovascular disease or blood clots, generally not recommended. And again, there's some other kinds of cancers and liver disease that they say, hey, probably not the safest option for you. There are some side effects. Breast tenderness is the most common, but bloating, mood swings, headaches, some vaginal bleeding may start occurring again, even if you had stopped, or spotting. The good news, most of these early side effects are very short duration. The hard thing is the next bullet, which tells you that, hey, it may take a little bit of time for these benefits to really fully manifest themselves. So it's really important to be patient. And they say often, nothing is going to happen for 3 to 4 weeks. If you're lucky, maybe it'll be earlier, but it could take several months for these for hormone replacement therapy to kick in. And I know I'm impatient, and so I'm like, okay, this isn't working. I say patience. And often they need to change up the dosages. So there's many different levels of estrogen. One other just note: if you do have a uterus and you're taking estrogen therapy, the recommendation is you also have progesterone. Like, for example, I'm on a estradiol patch. I also take oral progesterone, and the reason is it protects the uterine lining so that you don't have a higher risk of any kind of cancer. So the balance of those two are important for a lot of women who have a uterus. If you don't have a uterus, then you will usually go on estrogen-only therapy, but just something important to know. And again, let me just talk a little bit about if HRT is not an option, there are 2 actually clinically proven methods for mitigating symptoms. There are 2. One is cognitive behavior therapy and hypnotherapy. Both have been clinically proven to help women, especially with the vasomotor symptoms. But those are tried and true methods if you are not doing HRT. There's a lot of other methodologies, certainly lifestyle, and I'll talk a little bit about lifestyle, diet, exercise, obviously stop smoking, reducing the consumption of things like alcohol and caffeine, supplements. there are other things. And then people say, hey, you know, acupuncture helps some women. You know, there are many other therapies, a lot of Eastern medicine therapies that are super helpful during this time of life. So I really want to present, you know, a forum for you to pursue any kind of option that you think is appropriate and your doctor thinks is appropriate. So just know that not a silver bullet, there are some cons, but you have other options. So menopause myth number 6. Again, I kind of went through a lot of this already, but just to let you know that there are other prescription medications also that can be recommended for women who can't or don't want to go do HRT. So many of you may have heard of SSRIs or SSNIs or SNRIs. These are serotonin medications that can help with mood. As I mentioned, a lot of women have anxiety, depression. You can have like total fits of rage, just a lot of mood swings. So that sometimes is recommended for one's mental health. There's a new drug called Veozah, VEOZZAH, that is also specifically just came out within the last 6 months, specifically for hot flashes for women who can't do HRT. But like I said, if you're a smoker, a great time to look at cessation. Hydrating, a lot of women, we're just so busy, we're on the move, we're on the go. Dehydration is such a common thing, and women will get lightheaded, they'll get dizzy, their symptoms will be exacerbated. So drinking, you know, there's no perfect formula for every woman, but call it around 80 ounces of water a day is usually recommended to keep hydrated. Sleep, there's a lot of things you can do to improve your sleep hygiene. Of course, the very standard fixes of a nice cool room, loose cool clothing, cotton sheets, keeping a fan nearby, keeping the room nice and dark, you know, peeling away from your electronic devices before bedtime, and sometimes having soothing routines, whether it's listening to calming music, you know, doing a bath or a shower, aromatherapy, all those can help set our body and our mood to better fall asleep when we're wanting to fall asleep. Again, there's some supplements that can help as well. Exercise can also help with sleep. It tires you out. You just don't want to do it too soon before bedtime. So they say at least 3 hours prior to bedtime is recommended. But exercise, especially one thing that is recommended is cardiovascular is always a good thing to have as part of your repertoire for heart health. But also strength training, lifting heavy weights or doing resistance training. Muscle mass decreases during this time of our life. So exercise that can help you retain that muscle mass is super important for your muscular health, but also to help prevent osteoporosis. Like I mentioned, cognitive behavior therapy and hypnotherapy, but there's other things you can do for self-help, like mindfulness, acupuncture, yoga, are some suggestions. Again, there's a lot of different supplements that you can try, and herbs. Some of them, again, are Eastern things that have been used for thousands of centuries. The ones that I most commonly see recommended by doctors are magnesium, calcium, and vitamin D. You know, I'd say, you know, we all, you know, should be taking calcium throughout our reproductive years for osteoporosis and bone health. So it's important just to increase your milligrams a little bit from about, you know, 1,000 or less to 1,200 to 1,500 milligrams of calcium. Likewise, vitamin D is super important, both for calcium absorption, but also it can help stabilize your mood. Vitamin D, of course, being in sunny California, a lot of us get great sunshine and get vitamin D vis-a-vis the sun, but it's also good to just ensure you're getting the right dosage and getting calcium absorption by taking supplements as well. And then magnesium is also associated with helping to prevent osteoporosis. It also helps with the parathyroid hormone, and again, helps for bone development and also helps reduce inflammation. So those are the ones I recommend, but there's some other things here. A lot of people say soy, black cohosh, ashwagandha, and St. John's wort are some of the more common supplements and herbal remedies that people recommend. So myth number 7, you know, a lot of people think of menopause as something in my personal life, like I deal with that on my personal time. It affects my relationships or just my mental state. But more and more, there's a lot of articles coming out to talk about the impact on work performance. And I just have some really interesting statistics here to, you know, really share the facts behind this. 83% of respondents in a survey said that menopause was negatively affecting their work. When you think about the fact that 95% of us have some kind of symptoms, and these symptoms are happening all the time and they can change, it's really no surprise. We just haven't acknowledged this a lot in the public eye. 70% of menopausal women are trying to navigate work while experiencing untreated hot flashes. I mean, I know, like, I have been in meetings or presentations where I feel like my face start to get flushed, you feel sweat going down your back. It can be embarrassing, and you don't want to have to get into this whole dialogue about it. But the more we can talk about it in the workplace, the better off we'll be. Like, I heard this quote that says, if we don't talk about menopause in the workplace, that's why the workplace isn't working for us. So it's my hope that, similar to the stigma that mental health might have had 5 or 10 years ago, all these celebrities came out and athletes started talking about it and started normalizing the conversation. And people started realizing, wow, a lot of other people have some of the same issues I have, or everybody's dealing with something. I always say we all have a little bit of crazy. So it's good to just acknowledge and say, hey, all women have menopause. We might as well start talking about it, make people aware so they can support us in the workplace. Again, 51% of women are concerned about how their symptoms affect their performance. A lot of times we women are in the peak of our career when menopause hits, and we want to keep progressing and keep taking on more responsibility and leadership roles. And we're really concerned about, well, how is this going to affect the way I'm perceived and my ability to continue to get recognized at work? 26% actually said menopause symptoms affected my careers in a negative way, whether I didn't get that promotion, or I was sidelined, or I just missed more days from work because of my symptoms being severe. That's a problem. 66% of women think there should be more support. So I think women are hugely advocates for the workplace is a forum in which we can get support and get the help we need. And if more folks that we work with, more managers are aware of this. I'm actually, as part of my coaching job, I also do some HR coaching, and some companies are providing add-on benefits whereby you get life stage coaching, whether it's I had a death in the family, or I have a child who has a disability, or I'm in menopause. Like, you deserve coaching and support, and your manager may want that as well. Again, only 3% people felt they were getting really great support from work, and 6% said the support was below average or poor. So a lot of people just, again, aren't getting the support they need. And a lot of people, 70% of women, don't feel comfortable talking about their managers. Again, if this conversation were more out there and being discussed in a topic for lunch and learns, or just education in the workplace, maybe that statistic would change. So I'm just encouraging all women to advocate for yourself. And the first conversation is the hardest. And once you get past that discomfort, talking with your boss or coworkers, I think it's a lot easier. And then you don't have to feel like, oh my God, they don't know what's going on with me, and I'm embarrassed.
Nothing's helping.
Okay. Sorry, was there a question? Okay, no worries, no worries. Myth number 8, your gynecologist is definitely a menopause expert. There are many gynecologists who know a whole lot about menopause. So this is not to say that gynecologists are not the right course. But like I said, it's really important to pick the right care provider, because quite honestly, a lot of residents, a lot of medical students are not actually getting menopause therapy, menopause education in medical school. And if they get it, it often is an elective. It's only an hour or an hour and a half of curriculum. It doesn't really prepare them to treat women in menopause as effectively as we'd like them to. So don't necessarily assume that your gynecologist is a menopause expert. Make sure that they have the right education. And if you choose to find a new provider, or just kind of compare and get another opinion, that's totally your right. And you should, again, go to the North American Menopause Society and see if you can find a provider near you that is very educated in menopause. So in any case, definitely do your research. This one people kind of laugh at, but some people say, oh, my sex life is over, I'm done, like, no more. I'm not in my reproductive years, I don't feel like it, my libido is down, or I have all these other physical symptoms going on. But your sex life doesn't have to be over. Funny story, I actually, in doing my research and becoming acquainted with other people who help women during menopause, there are people called intimacy coaches. There are people called sexologists. And these people are specifically equipped to help anybody with, sexual dysfunction or discomfort, or just, intimacy issues. women in menopause compose often 50% of the population that goes to go to these specialists, because often a lot of these symptoms or even our mood swings and emotional states can affect our sex drive. So I think it's really important, first of all, to, again, have the right doctor, see an expert who specializes in this area if you need to, but also have open conversations with your partner, because you can't expect men to know or understand what's going on with our bodies. But I think the more you can communicate how you're feeling, why you're feeling that way, that they shouldn't take it personally. It's the hormones, blame the hormones, those are at work and those are creating these different symptoms. And so, if you can have those conversations and then you can get treatment for some of the symptoms, often your sex life can be the best it ever has been after 50. So please, don't feel like, oh, it's over. And again, there are some positives to, postmenopausal life, in that no birth control is needed, no unexpected pregnancies. Obviously, your cycles are not the interference that they normally are, the inconvenience, no PMS. Again, I kind of think of menopause as like a exacerbated PMS, but again, the symptoms can be treated. So there's really good hope of a positive outcome. And again, there are some other specialists like pelvic floor therapists that can help with vaginal pain and discomfort. So there are a lot of people out there that can help you. So definitely tap into those resources. Myth number 10, kind of similar to the last one. Oh, somebody's like, oh, I'll just buy my gravestone. I'm being put out to pasture. My career is over. My sex life, my relationships being affected. Please know that, again, support is here to help you. There are a lot of people who can make you feel better. Again, venting with other women, having these conversations, having a coach is, I think, an important step to making you feel more like yourself. And that you can live a really great, sustained, active life after, you go through menopause. Again, know that relief is possible. It can be hormone replacement therapy. It can be a lot of different options, but please just don't lose hope. And again, once people get past menopause and their symptoms are, they're facing some really good relief of some of those primary symptoms, women are so much more optimistic and hopeful, than they were 10 years ago. So often this can be the best part of our life, is just getting those symptoms under control and getting to a healthy, positive mental state. And, your careers can flourish and you can live a really wonderful, wonderful life afterwards. Like I said, my kids are all, out of the house at this point and living their own careers independently. And so I can really focus on myself. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to make this career change. A lot of women find they can kind of rebirth themselves and create a bright new future during this time. And I think another just important thing that I mentioned at the beginning is women are so used to being caregivers and taking care of others. They say on average, a woman in her mid-40s wakes up in the morning and has 5 thoughts about taking care of like 4 to 5 people in her family. Men wake up, they're like, oh, I'm awake. My butt itches. I have to go to the bathroom. So not to bash men, because I love men, but I think, we are often just controlling the universe of our families, and also, again, managing our careers, managing ourselves. It's a lot. And it's okay to kind of raise my hand and be vulnerable and say, hey, I need some help. I need support. Can you take over this? Can you take over this? Like, establish boundaries for yourself about where people are allowed to invade your space and where you just need your time. And self-care is just so important. Spend some time, whether it's a massage or a pedicure, or just going out with friends. Just make sure you take care of yourself, especially during this time with so much going on in your body. So I mentioned, again, this Menopause Cafe, I think, yeah, okay, next page. If you are interested in joining us for this is, again, on Monday, the 11th, and it is from 5 to 7 p.m. This is the first of many that I hope I'll host. Again, I hope to do some live, some virtual. This is simply a venting session for women to share their feelings, share their frustrations, just feel safe and ask questions of one another and compare journeys and what's worked and what's not worked. So please feel free to scan the QR code if you're interested in joining. But again, I'll host more of these, and I'll have information on menowar.net for ones in the future that you can attend if you can attend the one next week. One other thing, just to note, there is a group that I have formed. It is local in the Bay Area, the majority of the participants, but a lot of them provide both virtual and local services. So just as water. My whole objective here is, again, to surround myself and all of you with a host of really reliable, wonderful, recommended experts. So I have on this Menopause Mastermind group a pelvic floor therapist, a life coach, an acupuncturist. We have a sexologist. We just have a bunch, and they're all female. We just want to band together and, again, share information, compare notes, be up on the latest research and findings about menopause, and really, share what we're hearing from our clients so we can better serve women in this stage of life. But we're going to be hosting an event October 18th. We're firming up the details, but we'll have a really wonderful panel discussion from all these experts about understanding how menopause manifests itself, the key areas of concern, some tips and tricks they have, and just resources to help you mitigate those symptoms and really positively impact your health. So again, just check back social media and my site for more information about that. Okay, let me stop sharing and go back to the poll for a couple more questions. And some people might have answered these already, but if you haven't, if you were to receive menopause coaching, would you prefer to do so individually or part of a group? Because at Menowar, we provide coaching to individuals, we provide couples counseling, and we provide small group. So there's a variety of forms in which you can get the coaching. And again, you can join the Menopause Cafe. It looks like a lot of people prefer the group. I think there's safety in numbers, and it kind of, again, reduces the stigma and increases people's comfort in talking about the subject. And then lastly, I'd asked, would you prefer menopause coaching, offered as part of your workplace benefits, or to do so privately outside of the workplace? And it looks like about 1/3 said at work and mostly said privately. Again, it doesn't really have to be an either or. It's just nice to know that folks are interested in both mechanisms. And again, I think both can help for sure. So let me just go back to the presentation. So again, just so, here's just a QR code if you are interested in coaching, again, whether it be by yourself, if it's with your partner, if it's with a loved one or a small group, really flexible, also doing corporate coaching to provide, again, education in the workplace. So please reach out. I do free 15-minute consultations if you just want to explore my services or talk a little bit about your journey and next steps. I am open to those conversations, so please reach out. And that's all I had to share. I just, again, wanted to provide, some really concrete information so you kind of understand menopause, know what the journey is about, know what the symptoms are like, how, different therapies and methods at attacking those. But I really just want to, hear from you and hear what's concerning you or answer any questions that you may have. Anybody have anything they want to ask? And again, you feel free to put it in the chat if that's more comfortable for you, whatever you prefer.
I have a question.
Yeah, Micah.
Oh,
that was Camille. You go first, Camille.
I'm sorry. I was looking at you and sorry, Camille, go ahead. I see your hand raised. Sorry.
Okay. I'm so sorry. I was asking about like when you have an IUD, like how do you really know what's going on?
Yes. So, it's funny. One thing I didn't chat about that is really important is that doctors typically go off symptom tracking, not necessarily if you have an IUD or don't have an IUD, because some people are on birth control and, may not have, the normal manifestations. It's really important to track your symptoms because that's what doctors will go off of. And you'll also hear a lot about saliva or blood tests for hormones. By and large, the doctors that I've spoken with said those are not necessarily accurate determinations because, again, especially during menopause, our hormones are fluctuating so much day to day, hour to hour, month to month. So they really like you to track your symptoms, and they use symptoms as a way to tell whether you're in menopause. They may recommend that you remove your IUD to find out, or they may do other testing. I try to stay in my lane in terms of, like, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know the specifics. in terms of what they might recommend with the IUD, but typically doctors say it's all about the symptoms. So I understand that the cycles may be different with IUD, but that's typically what they say.
Okay, thank
But
you.
it's a good area for me to research, so I'll make a note of that so I can definitely provide more information in the future.
I have a quick question, or Micah, I think did you have a question? Go ahead. I
I
wasn't
do.
sure.
It's very quick. In terms of finding the best medical support, I know you recommended NAMS as a place to look at the directory for gynecologists that have a lot of understanding of menopause. What is your experience like finding like a functional medicine doctor or a naturopath? Have you found ones in your area that have the knowledge that support this kind of need?
Yeah, no, I'm a big supporter of homeopathic medicine and naturopaths. And it's actually a local naturopath who just kind of joined this community in Lafayette. And her primary focus is hormones, whether it be during menopause or other times of life. So I often find that naturopaths or doctors who study homeopathic medicine have a really great understanding. Again, I would definitely see your gynecologist and see the naturopathic doctor. But I think I've also found the naturopathic doctor, sometimes you'll go to different doctors and they'll only look at like a little slice of the pie. They'll look at what their functional expertise is versus all the other things that are going on in your body and with your medical history. And naturopaths can often help you connect the dots and make sense of things that seem really confusing or just you can't seem to really pinpoint what's going on. So definitely support, establishing a relationship with one. And we have one locally here that I know also does virtual. So always feel free to reach out to me if you need recommendations, because again, in addition to this menopause mastermind, we've put together a list of other practitioners that we can refer people to that we know are tried and true.
Thank you.
So I had a question on resources for exercise and diet that's helpful during this time.
Yes. So one of our menopause mastermind group members is Jenny Votel, and she is a personal trainer who focuses solely on women in the second half of life. And I think it's really important to, if you are going with a personal trainer, definitely look for one that emphasizes strength training, because I think that's what most women tend to miss out on during this time of life is you feel like, oh, I'm getting older. Again, might have joint issues and you're like, oh, lifting heavy weights, that doesn't make sense. But actually it's highly recommended. And they also say, like, I think we're also trained from an exercise perspective. That's my cat walking by if you saw a tail. We're also, trained, I think, when you think about exercise, a lot of women, I know I was trained to think about, oh, I got to sweat it out. I got to breathe heavy. I got to pant. Well, at this time of life, often your body just says no, like, I just can't do that. I can't climb that Peloton hill. And they say walking is one of the best things you can do is doing a walk every day, just getting out, getting fresh air, opening up your mind, getting the sensory experience. So walking is highly recommended. But I would definitely look for a personal trainer who specifically is oriented towards women who are in this part of their life, who does strength training. I highly recommend, again, yoga, Pilates, bar exercise. Those are all much easier on the joints than some of the other exercise we've been trained to do. And again, they're great for flexibility. They're great for balance. Just a great host of other functions. So I'm actually, if you are, for those who are local, I am connected with the Walnut Creek, the bar method. I've been a member for about 10 years and we're doing a little retreat in which we're talking about menopause in October. But the bar study in Walnut Creek, bar method in general, been doing it for years. I connected with Micah. I know she's a big bar person. So Pilates, bar, yoga, strength training, those would be my top recommendations. But like I said, it's as simple as taking a walk outside 20 to 30 minutes a day, housework, yard work, that all counts. Just get your body moving. And I know, like, we all tend to sit at desks a lot of the day or be on our devices. It's just getting up and getting your blood flowing. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Sure. Any other questions or anything else in your mind in terms of things that you're dealing with from a symptom standpoint? You're like, oh my God, is this normal? Or when does this stop? Or how can I mitigate this? Like I said, like, I was 100% prepared for the physical stuff. We all know about the period stopping, the hot flashes, but the mental stuff, wow, that threw me for a doozy. Like anxiety, the sleep issues, just confusion and brain fog. Like how many times have we all gone into a room and forgotten why we went there? Or like three things I have to remember, and I can remember one if I'm lucky. So it does get better with time. That's one thing I'll say.
Yeah, that's good to know, because I think that was the scariest thing for me, was the brain fog, because I had some of the other symptoms. Well, the other symptoms I also was attributing to other things. Now,
Yeah.
then, of course, looking in the rearview mirror is always hindsight's 20/20, as they say. But it was the brain fog. It was like, okay, do I have long COVID? Am I like early onset dementia? Like, what is going on here?
Seriously, I can't tell you how many
multitask
people, kind of reach those conclusions of like, I'm losing my brain. Or candidly, I have a mother with Alzheimer's. And so I've always been super fearful of dementia. And so I'm like, I'm getting dementia, like I'm sure of it. Again, we tend to blame ourselves versus attribute it to menopause. So always good to be aware of all the symptoms and ways it can show up.
I'd like to add one thing to that, because I'm a personal trainer and I'm a group exercise instructor. I actually know Jenny Vodel.
Oh, how nice.
She used to work with me at the Hills, but a really good thing to do for that is to take dance classes. It's good for your brain. It's good to, it exercises your brain.
Absolutely. They say, again, like things where you have to follow a routine and use your brain while you're using your body. I mean, also, quite honestly, they say this for all older, for as we age, or for people in menopause, doing puzzles, doing things that engage our brain. It's good to do word games or puzzles or things that engage our brain in different ways. Especially for those who maybe are not pursuing a career at this point in their lives. Just keep the brain engaged, read a lot, just activate it in different ways.
All right. I'm going to take off, but I'm going to try to make that cafe thing. That sounds awesome.
Awesome. Well, Angeline, since you're an expert in exercise, I know Micah also has a lot of exercise experience. Anything else that you want to share that you found has worked for you or that you recommend to your clients?
I think everything you said is 100%. I teach Pilates as well. And I think that I really see the industry moving far more into concentrating on strength training. Even though I teach a lot of dance classes, we also do strength training in that and lifting weights. And like you said, just getting moving every day. That I actually can't figure out why I'm still gaining weight. That's a real that's a head scratcher for me because but
I hear people who are like serious athletes. They're like, I never gained weight before. I'm working so hard at my workouts and I just can't stop it. And again, there's never one simple, silver bullet, but I always say like, okay, consider hormone replacement therapy, diet changes, just again, personal experience. I've always been like a sugar hound. I loved sugar out through my life and my body was able to deal with it. Like I always had a little sugar every night, just a little bit to get me through. Menopause hit and like I could not tolerate sugar. Like I literally had to go cold turkey and get off of the processed sugar. Now, like again, I'm not like a total I don't totally abstain. If there's an occasion or there's something I really want, I'll just do a little bit. But sometimes alcohol also, whether it be like they say red wine and menopause, they just don't mix. And we've been trained to like red wine's healthier than other alcohols, but during menopause, it just doesn't seem to work. Or I could have 3 drinks over the course of the night, be fine. Now I have 1 or 2 and I'm like, I have like a hangover the next day. Like I was drinking all night long. So your body, does not process alcohol the same. Caffeine is another one, common. Spicy foods can trigger hot flashes and other menopause symptoms. The diet that is most often recommended for women in menopause is Mediterranean diet. And again, there's some basic components of that in terms of eating a rainbow of vegetables and fruits, colorful fruits and vegetables, making sure you have protein. Again, I think we think of protein is going to be more caloric, but it's really important during this time to have different forms of protein. And they say to intersperse it over the course of the day versus trying to consume it all in one meal. Again, like hydration's incredibly important. Whole grains, nuts and seeds and avocados and olive oil. Again, I just say Mediterranean diet because you look that up and you'll get like really great recommendations. There's a specific book that I call my Bible, The Galveston Diet by, it's Mary Claire Haver. It's a wonderful tool for training you how to eat differently. Thank you. I have this like by my bedside. It has great information about what diet to follow. She also talks a lot about intermittent fasting, which I don't know if you guys have heard, but it's basically consuming all of your calories within a confined period of time. So maybe 8 hours is when you're going to have most of your calorie consumption. And then you may go 12 or 16 hours without eating. And that just really helps our body process better during this time. Okay, it's not for everybody. I personally, I don't follow that. I do tend to stop around 8 p.m. I just find I get more indigestion during menopause. So that helps with the sleep. But that's another recommendation she has. But she has recipes and just meal planning tools. So that's a really great resource. But I always say, like, if it comes in a package, probably not the best for you. I think that's kind of a wisdom. So as much as you can shop in the produce section and make things from scratch. I've trained all my kids to do meal prep on Sundays. Like I'll make breakfast for the week just so I have like my overnight oats to grab, and I'll have lunches that I know are healthy regardless of where I am. It's a chunk of time, but then you don't have to think about it, because when we have to grab something last minute, often we grab the packaged processed food, and we just know it's not the best for us. So cook from scratch. It doesn't have to be complicated. Most of my lunches are some kind of salad with protein mixed in. Just keep it super simple.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I appreciate all of you attending. I will be sending this recording out. So if you want to refer to it, and again, everybody's welcome to join the Menopause Cafe on Monday. And again, feel free to reach out to me for coaching or if you just have questions. But really appreciate y'all being here and spending your time with me.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
All right. Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
take care.